Hi everybody, it's my absolute pleasure to run you through Castle's absolutely brand new presentation, which I'll be taking to the Noosa Mining Conference this week, and then also we'll be delivering at a number of meetings in Sydney the following week. So Castle Minerals, we're a Perth-based junior explorer. We are exploring in West Africa and we're focusing purely on gold there. What differentiates us from a number of our peers is that we are an absolute grassroots generative explorer. We haven't inherited our projects. We've found these from first principles. We've got a huge, what we call search base, 2,000 square kilometres of which to make our discoveries. And the other thing is we've done it before. As former managing director of Azuma Resources that was also exploring in the same area, I found well over 2 million ounces, which is what's now called the Black Boulder Gold Project, and hopefully that will start development later this year. So here's a nice map of West Africa showing you all the mines there, and what sets West Africa apart is it really is the place to go and find gold these days. There's been 15 plus 2 million ounce discoveries in the last 12 years. And that map area is actually a bit smaller than the West Australian goldfield. So you can see there's been tremendous success over the years. So there's a map of Ghana, and Ghana's considered to be a mature country for exploration, but that's not the case. There's some major mines down in the south, like Obuasi and Ahafo. They're tens of millions of ounces at really good grades, but nobody's really done any exploration in the north. They didn't used to think there was gold up there until I took Azuma up there and we started to find gold in places where people didn't expect. But the thing is, the rocks up there, what we call these Birimium greenstones, they're just the same as the ones down south in Ghana, and also they're just the same as the ones over the rest of West Africa where you do find these deposits. So we're very lucky to have really a region almost to ourselves. We are the most active explorer in this region. So we have two flagships that we've found. And when I say found, we have found these. There was no indications of gold. There's no outcrop there. So we're actually exploring blind undercover. There was no what we call illegal or galamsey workings there. These are real discoveries by Castle. Kipali on the border with Côte d'Ivoire is a really, really interesting discovery. And the strategy is to really accumulate a large body of mineralisation across a number of shallow deposits. And that's a similar strategy over at Candia. Candia, there's a 16-kilometre, what we call prospective corridor of intermittent anomalism that runs to the northeast, and we are finding quite a lot of gold. So here's Kipali, and what is really interesting at Kipali and why Castle went there is because almost uniquely you can see two green stone belts. You can see those there in the map on the right. They basically form a focal point on our licence, and not only that, there's three major regional structures that come together. And the thing is, all of these greenstone belts and these structures all host gold deposits elsewhere off our licence. So why wouldn't you go and look there? And when we did, and this was a completely black canvas, and using geochem, we found some gold anomalism, and then we went in and drilled it. And we've done a number of programs there, particularly in the last year, and a number of the prospects are beginning to shape up, particularly the namesake Kipali prospect, and 4 kilometres to the north, the Bundi prospect. So looking at the namesake Kipali prospect, what it's showing is that so many of our holes have intersected primary mineralisation going down to well over 100 metres now. Just reminding you, this has come from absolutely nothing, a blank canvas, to something quite substantial, and it's still very much open-ended. We've got a number of north-south trending subparallel lodes, that's those dark red areas there hanging off a granite. Again, very typical setting for what we call these orogenic structure controlled deposits. And there's two of those lodes are very, very persistent. So here's a cross section across that map, and you can see two lodes. You've got the hanging, what we call the hanging wall lode on the left there, and that's particularly high grade and quite wide in places. And then underneath that, there's the footwall lode. And these probably stretch for over 1.5 kilometres. And the other thing about these deposits in West Africa, also in Australia, is who knows what depth they go down to. They can be tracked down for hundreds of metres. At the moment, we're just focusing on finding our way, feeling our way, and then we'll start chasing them down a bit later. So this is one of my favourite maps. It's actually a section running north-south along those lodes. And on the left is the hanging wall lode, and in the middle on the right is what we call the footwall lode. And you can see a number of the intercepts that we've had there. And what this really emphasises is how open this mineralisation is to the north, and particularly to the depth. The other one, really good one that we just drilled and put some results out recently, is the Kapali prospect. Some really decent numbers there. Bit earlier stage than Kapali, but shaping up very well. And then we have another prospect over at Kapali East, only a few holes into that, but we're getting some joy there. So we're looking forward to getting back to that later this year, perhaps early next year. The reason I've got this slide is because you can't not get excited about what we're doing in Ghana and northern Ghana. The Asafo discovery was made by Endeavour Mining, a much bigger company than us, just across the border in Côte d'Ivoire, probably about 100 kilometres to the south. And this started off and looking very similar to what we're doing at Kapali and Candia and what we did at the Zuma. It's just a series of near-surface anomalies that were drilled. And in absolutely no time at all, Endeavour have taken this right through to a 4.6 million ounce resource, and they've already completed a pre-feasibility study, and I'm sure this will be developed very, very soon because it's really good grades. And it's this sort of thing, I suppose. It's what we're all aspiring to, and these discoveries keep popping up all over West Africa. So just thought I'd include this just to give you an example of what can be done and how quickly it can be done. You can get mines up and running in West Africa a lot quicker than you can in Australia, and usually they come in on or even under budget. Now, if we go over to the east, we have our Wa East region, where we've got several licenses covering a very large area. And again, this is all work we've been doing here is really grassroots generative work, and we're finding lots of anomalism. And the main focus has been on the Candia license, where we've got two zones of interest, the 4,000 and the 8,000 zones. And just reminding you, they sit on a 16-kilometre anomalous corridor, and we've probably only looked so far about 6 kilometres within that. The Candia corridor actually, as it goes north, it abuts the Azuma Resources Black Volta gold project. So it's also very strategically located, given that project is likely to start development this year. And then you can see a bit more of a zoom in on where the 4,000 and the 8,000 zones are there. And there's a lot of work yet to be done. It's still very early days, but we're very excited about what we've seen so far. Here's the drilling that we've been doing now. Some really, really good results and shaping up very, very nicely. And a cross-section through the 4,000 zone, very similar to what we saw at Kapali. We didn't know whether there was any depth component. We just didn't know whether it was just shallow anomalism, and that's all we're going to get. But with the drilling that we've done, we've now shown that there's a depth component, there's primary mineralisation there. So that's got us very excited, and hopefully that's an indication that we'll be able to find more mineralisation like this along the whole 16 kilometres. So look, this slide's not technical, but it goes to the heart of what we do and how we operate in Ghana. It's really important that you engage very positively with the communities. Everybody talks about ESG, but the most important thing to me is getting my social license in the local community. And we work very hard with them. We employ as many of them as we can, give them as much training as we can. And that always gets a very positive feedback, and it means that we can get good access to their land. It's their land, and we see ourselves as guests there. At the Candia recently, we just installed a water bore and a pump and in a village there, and doesn't cost us much, but it's absolutely transformational for these people to have fresh water rather than for the women to have to go every day and get water from a dirty river or lake, and creates enormous improvement in mortality and as well. So it doesn't cost us much, but it's our small contribution, and it makes a big difference to how smoothly we can operate in these areas. Castle's been through a lot of change in the last 9 months. Got 2 new board members have come on following retirements. We've consolidated our capital, raised some funds. Ross Hartley's have been really good supporters of what we're doing. They're very much across the West African exploration and mining space. And I suppose the main point here is that we have a very, very modest enterprise value, just over $6 million. So compared to our peers, that means there's a lot of upside for investors who want to come in to the company. And a lot of the new investors that have come in on the recent capital raising, they're high net worths, they have family offices, they've all done very well out of investing in other West African countries. So we're very pleased to have them on board, and we see they're joining us as a real endorsement for what we're doing. So the board, I'm the executive chairman. Brian Thomas joined us earlier this year. He's got a very strong background in corporate finance and broking, was most recently chairman of Azure Minerals, and saw that go through the takeover or scheme of arrangement with a Hancock joint venture. And Matt Horgan joined us late last year. Matt's very, very capable business person with a business development and investor relations background, and is also business development executive now at Bannerman Energy. And we have a very, very strong Ghanaian cohort led by David Renner, very, very well-known businessman, and used to manage one of the big mines there for AngloGold Ashanti. And then there's George. George is our go-to man. He gets everything done for us in Ghana. You say, George, you want to drill 10 holes here? Here's the coordinates. And he just goes out and organises the drill rig, the people, the logistics, the community, the assays, absolutely everything. Tremendous operator. And then Hector looks after a lot of our administration, just oversees our companies over in Ghana. So now, discovery track record, that's me. That's just what I did at Zuma Resources. That resource at Zuma of way over 2 million ounces actually comprised a number of shallow deposits. And when you look at this, you can see that's exactly what we're doing at Kipali and Candia. We're at the early stage of replicating this, of making these discoveries and then drilling them out to prove up the ounces. So when I look at this, it brings back very happy memories, but it also gets me very excited about what I'm doing at Castle. So news flow, investors always asking me, what's the news flow? Well, I don't think we've missed a beat in the last year. We've just had a back-to-back drilling program since last August across several prospects, and we're going to continue that later this year and into next year. The next phase of work will be some auger sampling. Now, why do we do that? Well, you don't find these deposits just by going out there with a drill. You can't drill everywhere. You have to go and do some very systematic geochemical sampling using auger rigs. And so we've got a big program about to start in August, and that will look to extend some of our existing prospects and also test some new prospects that we've generated. And they've been generated from aeromagnetic surveys. So there's 2 surveys covering our licenses at Kipali and Candia. And at Kipali, we were very fortunate a month ago to get hold of all the data from a very large survey that was done by a previous explorer in the region. And that survey would cost you $1.5 million US to do today, and we've got all that information free. So we're right now busily reprocessing all of that data to help us extend our exploration on the Kipali license. Similarly, over at Candia, Castle actually flew its own survey, but that was about 14 years ago. So using the very latest software, we're reprocessing that. And along with our specialist consultants, we're going to be generating a lot more targets. And that's how we're going, and we'll use that to underpin our auger programs. So very excited about what's going to be happening in the next 3 to 6 months. So thank you very much. I'm really, really grateful for you listening to this presentation. There's a lot more to know about Castle. It can be found on its website. But I suppose the takeaway message is if you like gold and you think West Africa is a place to find and make discoveries, and you want to an entry into that space, then Castle provides a very, very good step into that region, and particularly what we consider a new exploration frontier in northern Ghana.